My family was the outdoorsy type. We loved nature, hiking, and exploring. My dad always said the great outdoors will teach you more in life than any smartphone or computer would. Sure, anyway, my family and I always took an annual camping trip up into the mountains, and this year was no different. When we parked our truck, I was happy to see the campgrounds were empty. The last couple of years, it was too crowded for me to enjoy it. My mom, dad, and I started hitching our tents. By the time we finished, it was nearly sundown. My dad made a fire, and we cooked hot dogs for dinner. When it was time for bed, I got into my tent, and my parents got into theirs. It wasn't hard for me to fall asleep. The sounds of nature all around me soothed me in my comfy sleeping bag. I woke up to a noise, and I checked my phone. It was 3:15 a.m. in the morning. I heard footsteps coming from my parents' tent, and figured it was just my dad going to the bathroom. I was about to try to fall back asleep when the zipper to my tent started to unzip. It came down about 5 inches. All I could see was the black night outside and nothing else. I sat there nervously, wondering why my mom or dad was trying to come into my tent. That's when an old lady's head popped up. Her skin was gray, her hair was thin and wild, and her eyes looked unhinged.
"Will you come play with me?"
I pissed my pants. I could not move or speak. The old lady tilted her head.
"Come with me. I have something to show you."
I literally froze like a statue. I could not comprehend my circumstances. After a moment, I just shook my head no. The old lady smiled and then just left. It took me about an hour before I could regain my thought process. I went to my parents' tent and explained what happened. My dad thought that I had a bad dream, but that's when we saw bare footprints leading to my tent and then into the woods. My parents believed me, and we packed everything up into the truck and then left. It was about a 5-hour drive home. It was almost 8 a.m. when my mom received a notification on her phone from the campgrounds. The local authorities said that there was a mental institution 5 miles from the campgrounds and that 10 patients had escaped overnight. My mind flashed back to the old lady asking me to play with her, and I shuddered. I'm an adult now, with my own family, and we still go hiking and camping. But every so often, I'll get this feeling that the old lady will return and ask me to play with her one more time. It's totally illogical, I know, but I don't think that I'll ever be able to recover from it. My girlfriend Rachel and I love to go camping in the woods. While our friends would go out and party on the weekends, you would find us in the mountains, making fires and telling each other ghost stories. That was living to us, and that's why we worked out great as a couple. Rachel's parents had an RV. They let us use it anytime we wanted to stay overnight on one of our camping adventures. It easily attached to the back of my truck, and we could take it anywhere. One Friday night, we had taken the RV out into the Pocono Mountains. We found a new spot that we wanted to check out. By the time we got settled in, it was almost midnight. We weren't too tired and decided to hook up our Nintendo Switch to the hotspot that I brought and play Mario Party. We were about 5 rounds into the game when I noticed a shadowy figure walk by the RV window. I paused the game and blinked. Was I seeing things? It's after midnight. There wouldn't be anyone walking around out there. But the shadow didn't look like an animal. It was upright like a human. Rachel said it was probably just the trees blowing in the wind and the moonlight playing tricks on our eyes. And that was fine. We did not question the situation further until we heard the RV doorknob start to twist. It twisted as if someone was trying to open the door and come inside. What the hell? I bolted to the cupboard and pulled out an aluminum bat. I kicked the door open and raised the bat violently, ready to swing at whoever it was. No one was there, just the moonlight and an abyss of dark forest. Maybe it's an animal, Rachel said, trying to calm me down. I nodded and agreed, but thought what kind of animal knew how to turn a doorknob? 10 minutes passed. Rachel said that she had to use the bathroom outside. I watched from the window as she went behind the truck to do her business. I did not want anything to sneak up on her. Everything seemed fine until Rachel screamed. I ran out of the RV with the bat. Rachel was by the passenger truck side. "Look," she said, and pointed at the tree line. There, just behind the closest tree, was a dirty, filthy kid, maybe about 11 or 12 years of age. He was bobbing up and down and had this wild smile plastered on his face. I raised my bat at him and told him to get the hell away from here. The boy only laughed, his voice echoing wildly through the mountains. The boy pointed at me and then took his pointer finger and mimicked slicing his throat. He laughed like a maniac and then disappeared into the forest. I told Rachel to pack her things. We were getting the hell out of here. We didn't stop driving until we found the nearest motel to stay in. It was miles and miles away from the woods, and even then, we still did not feel safe. This story happened when I was 14. My parents' house was on the edge of a large forest. On the weekends, one of my favorite things to do was invite some friends over and go camping in the woods in my backyard. We would pitch a tent up a few yards into the forest and sleep there overnight. I know it's not exactly hardcore camping, but we still enjoyed it. It was a Friday night. My friends Mikey and Sam were sleeping over, and we were spending the night in our tent. Mikey brought a ton of snacks, and I had a portable DVD player. We watched horror movies and ate junk food all night long. Around midnight, we all started to doze off. The forest sounds were soothing and slowly lulling us to sleep. I was about to enter into a deep sleep when I heard twigs being stepped on outside. I looked to Mikey and Sam to see if they heard the noises too, but they had already fallen asleep. I sat up straight and listened closely to the noises outside my tent. I wondered if it was a deer or a fox, but then remembered that we hardly got any animals in this part of the woods. I heard the twig snap again, but this time closer, like right outside of our tent closer. I nudged Mikey and Sam to wake up. They groggily asked what's up. I held up my finger to shush them and nodded my head to listen. The twigs continued to snap right outside of our tent, as if someone was walking around. I sent a text to my dad explaining that I think someone is outside of our tent and to come outside immediately, praying that he was still awake. As I hit send on the text, that's when the zipper to our tent started to pull down. The three of us watched in horror as an elderly man's face appeared at the flap. "You sons of bitches, I'm going to kill you." The man lunged at us. He fell on top of Mikey, trying to pin him down. Sam and I both started punching the man, screaming to get off of him. The man let out a wild man's yell, almost like a man painfully transforming into a werewolf. I took the portable DVD player and smashed it into his head. That seemed to do the trick. The man fell over, unconscious. We bolted out of the tent and sprinted to my house. My dad was on our back porch, flashlight in hand, explaining that he just saw my text. We told him about the man who just attacked us. Mikey's bloody nose was evidence enough to my dad that we were not messing around. We called the police and they arrived 10 minutes later. We showed the officers our tent and the man was still lying there unconscious. The next morning, we got the full details. Turns out, it was our next door neighbor, Bill Heltman. Bill was a war veteran who suffered from severe PTSD. The night we were camping, he had taken a number of pills and drugs and had been hallucinating. He thought my friends and I were the enemy from the war that he served in and actually was trying to kill us. And I feel bad that he suffers with PTSD, but when I tell you that this was the most terrifying event in my life, I am not exaggerating. Mikey ended up having a broken nose that healed a few months later, but never again did me or any of my friends ever go camping in my backyard woods again.